So welcome to another episode of the Abwazi Wine Buzz. Now, traditionally, it's always been about wine. So as you know, wine is a very popular beverage, but there is another that captures the heart, stimulates in more ways than one. It's called te, ta, cha, chai, and tea. So today, we're going to explore the world of tea. Many of you may or may not know that the tea leaf is Camellia sinensis. And with wine, it's Vitis vinifera, Vitis riparia, Vitis lambrusca. There's so many different types. Today, it gives me enormous pleasure to introduce a couple by the name of Tim and Sue Marie Hill, who are the owners, proprietors, founders of iLola. So welcome to the show, Tim and Sue Marie.
Thank you very much.
It's our honor to be here.
Thank you. Now, the name iLola, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
All right. So iLola, on the website, it says it's a Swahili name, meaning to grow strong. What is the inspiration to name your company after that name?
As you know, I'm South African. And so the African languages has something that resonates with us culturally. And when we started the company, it was right in the midst of COVID. We had a different company that closed due to COVID and forced us to pivot and create and invent ourselves again. And this process was, I think the name meant more because of the process. To grow strong is something that we continuously choose to do. It is not stagnant. It is not a one-time thing. And I think that resonated with us, that everything we do is a constant process of growth. And at iLola, it doesn't matter what we do today. Tomorrow is another day. The day after is yet again another day. So it really just truly resonated with who we are, what we intend to do, what we bring in our experience.
Well, as they would say in South Africa, it's a very famous saying, which I'm sure you will recall. Let's make a plan.
Yes. Boer maak 'n plan.
Yes,
that's right.
Always make a plan, exactly.
Always make a plan. So clearly you have made a plan. Now, you said you pivoted during the COVID times. What made you both decide to jump into the ring of competition in one of the most competitive beverage fields in the world, being tea?
Yeah, so we had this kind of moment. So bear in mind, we're in the midst of COVID. We have a business that is no longer viable in terms of what the avenues that we're selling to. We're having to get up at 2 a.m. because we have children that need us during the day, and they're suffering from confusion and unsureness. And Sue Marie comes up to me with this idea of binding the loose leaf tea together. And so here we are sitting talking about, where can we go from here? What are we going to do? And I'm just going to showcase to you this tea disc. And she said, we've sat here with customers, tea customers, that are saying, I love the idea of loose leaf tea. I love the idea of getting into loose leaf tea, but I find it cumbersome. I understand tea bags not good for me. There's there's microplastics, there's bleach, there are things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So when she came up with this idea and showed me a prototype of it, and I'll just draw a little closer.
Yeah, come closer to the
yes.
camera if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So now you can see that it is what we call a tea disc. And so this isn't just compressed tea, this is tea held together with probiotics. So you have the benefit of probiotics, you have the ease of placing one tea disc into your cup, 2 into your pot, and you just start this journey of enjoying loose leaf tea. So now a lot of the barriers that we had for our customers in terms of how to get into loose leaf tea has now been removed.
Might as well make a cup of tea here.
Well,
Yes,
let's
please.
start. Yes, we've got one here. What I'd actually like to do, Simri, if you don't mind, Dr. Lee, we'll just kind of
Okay.
showcase how it breaks up here,
Surely can.
Please.
because this is still loose leaf tea. It just comes in this format here.
So when we opened our first store about 12 years ago now, it was a quaint little tea shop on the Sunshine Coast.
Ah,
And
yeah. So you've always been involved in tea for over a
exactly.
decade.
And your question is kind of like asking, you know, a 100-meter athlete that's passionate about running that race, why are you doing that? There's a lot of other people doing it, you
Right.
know, in the sense that when you do have a love for something, I don't think it truly matters what that something is. You should pursue your passion. And, you know, tea is that moments of time with family, time alone, quiet, and we
Yeah.
just love tea for ages. So being in that industry, it was not something we were wanting to leave, even when faced with this is one of the oldest commodities in the world. And yet there's still so much you can do with it.
That it is. So essentially, you've transformed from a world-class sprinter now to a world-class distance runner, marathon runner. Congratulations. So I see the loose leaf is slowly sort of breaking up there.
Yes, and you'll see it start to eventually kind of break apart as it rests in the hot water. So
yes, it's a microbial binding. So it's actually probiotics. It's a culture that we grow that we then use to create the tea discs.
So the tea drinker will actually benefit from drinking the tea itself, the flavor, the aroma, but also possibly the advantage of the probiotics as well.
Exactly. And not all probiotics will sustain the temperatures, that's for sure. But we do have some of our strains that is spore forming. So it has like a bit of a shell around it, and that protects it during the heating process. So it's an added benefit to the tea drinker.
Now, interestingly enough, I have studied tea quite extensively, and I have not come across the loose leaf into a disc with probiotics. How did that idea come about?
Well, that was in the tea shop, like Tim said. We had customers that came to us, and actually, McGill University did a study in 2019 showing that tea bags contain an enormous amount of bleach and up to 11 billion microplastics in a single cup of tea. So the customers were very aware that they wanted to do away with tea bags, and the quality is, you know, subpar. But the loose leaf tea was something that they, you know, found cumbersome, like Tim said. For me, nutrition is extremely important. We are the most overfed but undernourished generation ever. So everything we have always done had been in the functional space, has extra benefits, it's better for you, it's in the wellness industries. So we wanted to create and stick to what we're passionate about. So finding a way to bind it, not with sugar or glucose or something, add extra empty calories to your diet. We wanted to stick to, you know, something that would actually add and benefit the customer.
So do you actually have your own sort of molding process?
Yeah, everything happens right here in Vancouver. We grow the culture, we bind it, we handcraft it, we sell it, everything from right here.
So everything's blended together.
Nothing is made outside of, at the moment, Canada. We actually make everything right here.
Well, I can see the maternal instincts coming then. We'll talk later about your 5 lovely children. So how's that tea coming along, Tim?
Tea's coming along nicely, actually. Yeah. We can kind of just pour that in there.
Maybe, yeah.
And there is quite a fine strainer on here. One of our infusers, we actually would it has a 0.5 micron, so it allows some of the tea leaves to come through, which some people aren't for. Personally, I actually like it in the same way as I enjoy pulp in my orange juice. It comes with the benefits. So there's the fibers that you get with the tea leaves. So don't be afraid of having tea leaves in your cup if you are kind of getting into drinking tea as well. So
yes, we should have sent you some tea for this.
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah, so cheers, Dr. Lee. I will start if you don't mind.
Oh, please, please, by all means. I'm envious. I would have loved to have joined you. Now, what? So share with us, because although Camellia sinensis is the only leaf that is used, but how you come up with red tea, green tea, white tea is quite different. So where are the tea leaves that you use? Where are they grown?
So that's actually the unique differentiator that we have from, sometimes people say, oh, the tea discs have been made for centuries, compressed fermented tea. That's a very different process. You compress raw, fresh leaves and you ferment it as such. Whereas we created afterwards, after we've, after black tea, green tea, white tea has been made. And all of that is just in the picking, the oxidation, fermentation and drying process. So you have one leaf that creates all these beautiful different varieties of tea. But as we now know it, tea can be, people consider what we would name a tisane, a rooibos or a chamomile. They still think of that as tea. So our tea disc comes in chamomile and rooibos and, different varieties of herbs and fruits and other ingredients as well. So we use the best chamomile from Egypt. We have rooibos that comes from South Africa and honeybush. We use Argentinian mate. But our tea, our black teas, we generally prefer African black teas.
Yes, very similar.
And traditionally, China and India has been your main growers of black tea.
Right.
But Kenya and Rwanda, they're coming up with amazing black teas.
Some fabulous black teas coming out of, particularly Kenya. Kenya is now one of the third largest growers of tea in the world. So a fantastic range of teas that's coming out of there as well.
Well, thank you for sharing that insightful perspective of the world of tea, Sumeri and Tim. Now, do you actually go to the tea farms, or how do you procure your actual tea leaves?
Not yet. Being still part of a startup company.
Yes, of course.
Like you said, we have 5 kids. It is
Yes.
definitely something that is in, something that we'd hope to do is work more one-on-one with tea farms. We do know
I can see that happening with you. I can see that really happening with you. You're going to extend it all the way. Yeah. So you inspect it yourself, the tea leaves?
Yes, and all our teas come through different processes and qualifications. We are particular about where we get our teas from, and it's not just, I think people are moving away from it has to be organically classified versus organically raised. We have small plantations, especially when it comes to age-old industries like tea, where, these tea farms have existed for centuries and it's been passed down from family to family. And it's a small tea farm. They use, the purest growing methods, but they don't have organic classification. And so, making sure that we choose the best tea is definitely our top priority. Rather than using mass plantations that has the organic certification, but the quality of the tea is not where we would want it to be.
It's tea and wine are very similar in that sense. You're going for bulk wines. There's bulk tea leaves, and then there's the specific tea. Whether you're choosing from the first pick, the second pick, it's so very different, and the soils as well. Now, when you receive the tea, they're loose leaf.
Yes.
So you would then take us through the process and then you'd place it into a disc. Now, are those tea leaves blended already in the way that
we blend everything in-house. Yes. So we get the pure leaves, we in-house, and I think I was saying to Tim, originally that was my happy space, sitting in these big buckets and playing around with the ingredients.
Right.
Trying to get the blends to where we are today.
So are you the guinea pig, Tim?
Our whole family is the guiney pig, let's be fair.
Oh.
I'm more than happy to take on that role as chief taster. It's
Right. So is there a particular in terms of the wine world, you often get the winemaker who has a specific penchant for the style, the blend of the type of wine that they want. Now, how about the tea that you are offering? Does it have something that's unique to you? I'm sure it does, but what is it that you feel, oh, this is going to be really good?
I think apart from the obvious tea disc versus anything else, we definitely have, we gravitate towards oolongs and white teas. Growing up in South Africa, we grew up in rooibos with, that being our tea, which it's a fynbos plant, which is actually not a Camellia sinensis, but we definitely like our oolongs and our whites. But we have learned that it's not always what you want, it's what your customer wants. And to make sure that we cross that bridge and give people tea that, they really enjoy, because at the end of the day, it's about their experience. Tea meets them where they are at in that moment in time. And if I can't provide that, then I'm failing.
Understood. But what are your thoughts on that, Tim?
I mean, I think, depending on where the tea is grown, you are going to find different notes. You're going to find different flavor qualities. Personally, I'm partial to a Japanese green tea. I do enjoy the flavors that will arise. And Fujian white tea is very light, quite elegant and soft as well. But I do love the durability and that earthiness that you get from those Kenyan blacks. And so I think, as Sumri says, it is hard to kind of, if you are looking at giving a suggestion or a reference to somebody that is looking at getting into tea, it does have such a wide variety. And then on top of that, then you add, for instance, we're drinking a citrus punch at the moment, which is a beautiful oolong, has lovely depth in the taste, but it has those light citrus notes that just kind of add to it as well. So now you're adding a whole other level in the same way as you do with wine, where you have that base taste, and now you're adding your oak, your chocolate, your citrus in exactly the same way as well.
And I have to add to that in the sense that, we don't have bubblegum or candy cane or, and I do recognize that is very popular teas. But our teas are definitely more natural. We don't use a bunch of artificial flavorings and, sprays that takes away from the quality of the tea leaf.
Of course.
So our tea blends are definitely a lot more tea focused rather than flavor forward with artificial flavors.
Now, I see you've been sipping your tea there, Tim. I wondered if you might be able to pour yourself a refill, but when you pour, could you just hold the spout of the teapot a little higher so we can see the color as you're pouring it in? Because I think it's lovely. It's got that really inviting amber.
Yeah, well, let me see if I can draw it a little closer to the camera.
Right.
So just kind of grab. I know the colors are slightly difficult with the shine of the vessel, but you get that lovely kind of yellow hint to it. You can see the leaves have really opened up now as well.
Yes.
Which is nice because you really want those tea leaves to circulate around your cup or your teapot, however it is.
And that's the beauty of this. We get to use the great quality tea leaves, but simplify it. There's been all these conversations about, the tea dust being used in tea bags and that the quality is not where loose leaf tea is. But then we can create the convenience plus the quality leaves.
Well, I love the idea of the disc because the disc, you have your set measurement. With most people, that's 1 teaspoon or 2 teaspoons. I remember when I was spending time in England, you'd always have this constant fight between, when I visit uncles and aunts, and they'd say, no, it's got to be two teaspoons, dear, not 3. So you've taken the argument out of that. Now, Tim and Sumari, you have 5 children, so congratulations on that. and must be a lot of work.
Yeah, he did a
And
lot
you
of work
mentioned earlier on, oh, is that you? Do you take the major role there, Tim?
there.
Well, my question was this. I said, one of the many roles of any parent, apart from guidance, safety, is teaching. Do you teach the children anything about tea etiquette?
Yeah, I mean, I think as parents, it is our responsibility to pass on education. It is our responsibility to pass on teaching. I think when it comes down to etiquette, I think probably the best lesson that you can start with is character. And so I think one of the things that we teach our children is in terms of helping them to build their character. So from a very young age, we've always brought them into very nice restaurants. We've brought them into various different situations, whether it's culinary situations or situations that's outside in other people's homes. And there's an element of character that we teach them in terms of how to behave, or how our expectation is of their behavior, regardless of where they go. Then on top of that, then we can start adding that layer of etiquette. So we may delve into, this is how you would behave in certain restaurants. You may see different levels of cutlery that's there. That's what these are for. And then when it comes to tea, our biggest lesson that we want for them is to actually enjoy the experience of tea. So not to be quite so focused on the etiquette of that, we'll come to that later, but to really enjoy having a cup of tea or a pot of tea with your family and being able to sit down and enjoy that experience.
Now, having said that, our kids have eaten in a lot of five-star restaurants around the world and can sit for 2 to 3 hours and behave exceptionally well. So I'm sure there's been some training passed along over the last 12 years.
Yes.
Well, congratulations to both of you, because I know having 5 children to be seated quietly for 5 hours or a couple of hours is not an easy task. So congratulations there. It's wonderful that you are teaching them about etiquette. And as you said, as they become older, there'll be layers and different layers, and the world that they are going to grow up in is very different to the world that we have grown up in.
Yeah, quite.
Now, moving on, you are both CEOs of the company.
Yes.
That's like finding an exceptional wine with balance, strength, and subtlety. What are the challenges that you've faced, and how do you minimize that?
Well, we share it. So I come with the subtlety.
I not so much. I've got the South African in me. The red personalities sometimes lead.
Okay.
For us, it has worked. For others, not so much. I think, we within our relationship, we come with an ability to listen. We come with forgiveness, probably more so than anything else. We manage to work around sharing the roles so that we aren't quite stepping on each other's toes, but also that allowed us to develop our own expertise as well. So Sumri may be more heavily involved with the research development and the production. I may be more heavily involved with, say, marketing and sales and advertising and seeing that side of it. So with each of us, we get to bring our own strengths in terms of what we're overseeing. But the vision for what we're trying to create is the same vision. And that's what's most important, is that we come together and we talk about constantly, where are we going? What are we doing? We may sit and feel that we've had a bad week, in which case we'll fire both of ourselves and then rehire ourselves and come in and make sure we're coming back to that same vision of what we had in the first place.
And when it's feeling rather anxious, you have a cup of tea.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think one of the things that we've learned is really to, not get hung up about the little things. We get so overly anxious about things that truly doesn't matter on the grand scheme of things. Just because you're tired, or, like you said, with 5 kids, there is some sleepless nights. And so we have learned in the 12 years of working together day in and day out to move on fairly quickly. We don't stay mad. And that didn't happen from the beginning. That was definitely a conscious choice on both ends over the years, where you're realizing, you still fight about the same things in business 5 years down the line. You might as well just have the fight and move on.
Of course. Understandable. Now,
which is no different than anywhere else in business. I should outline that, when you sit in an executive position or director position or management position, you are constantly discussing and at times arguing, but the essence is to get that company moving in the right direction. Really.
And that is not personal.
It's not personal at all.
Well, I think you have the added advantage to say, well, let's just take a step back and have a cup of tea.
Precisely.
So, I think more CEOs should be doing that. Now,
do you know what? There was actually a study that had been done on the on drinking coffee versus drinking tea, and they found that most executives. The study was done about 10 years ago, so most executives were actually drinking coffee, and they looked at other people that were drinking tea, and they found that by drinking tea, it actually brought the team together. You were more likely to work as a team if you were drinking tea, as opposed to more of a solo kind of drive yourself if you were a coffee drinker.
Yes. I mean, there's a reason why there's the Japanese tea ceremony, which is highly famed. People in the East drink more tea. But talking about the tea itself, where do the consumer, where do they find you? Where are they able to buy your tea?
So currently our focus has been to build up our direct to consumer. So our website is, you can find our teas on other distributor partners such as Amazon or Neiman Marcus, Hercho, places like that. We are starting to slowly build up our retail partnership. But for us, the most difficult thing is because we're coming with a new concept with this tea disc being held with these probiotics. It's a new way of consuming tea. So we have to make sure that our education piece is really brought forward. And so there's no better way for us to do that than on our own platforms, whether it's through social media, blogs, or, on a podcast like we are with yourself, Dr. Lee. So it's important for us to make sure that we have that education. And so having it on our website or on some of these partners is a great way to kind of move forward.
Right. So if consumers want to buy some of your disc loose leaf tea, get onto your website.
Exactly. iLolatea.com.
All right. Yeah, of course. Well, we'll have that in the link. I think it's very modern. It's a very modern type style of direct to the consumer, because that reduces your costs and it will reduce the cost to the consumer ultimately. So I will have something to say about that near the end. Now let me move on to wine. So what's your favorite wine that you like to drink, Sumari?
I, coming from South Africa, have a very wide range of likes depending on the weather. I'm very particular about what I eat and what I drink with the food. So I love Merlot. He prefers Pinot Noir. So obviously we drink Pinot Noir. But I am definitely on the lighter scale that I do like a Pinot Grigio, Pinot Noir as well for, general meals. But I like Merlot. I like Cab Sav.
So let's say a consumer said to you, Sumari, I'm like you. Merlot is the wine that I would go to. I'm not a great tea drinker. I'm actually a coffee drinker. What tea would you recommend, knowing that I prefer a Merlot?
I think we're actually implementing a quiz on our website to help people navigate this stream of questions, trying to find a good, because traditionally people think, oh, okay, if you're a bit of a deeper red wine drinker, you'd like English breakfast or Kenyan. But I think there's a lot more that people would actually like a good oolong or a powder green. So there is definitely a couple of blends that would surprise traditional English breakfast tea drinkers.
So that's a great answer because you're encouraging the tea drinker to expand their palate as opposed to saying, well, if it's a Merlot, it should be this. If it's a Cab, it should be this. I think that's a wonderful approach to it, Sumari. So that's well done. Well done. Now, Tim, if you're going to have a dinner party, no tea, you're going to have a dinner party, what wine would you not choose and why?
Am I hosting
You
the
are
dinner?
hosting. You're hosting.
But definitely not a box wine.
Okay.
I, it, I mean, I don't know. I think personally, it really depends on who we're bringing, and it depends on what's being served as well. As Simri alluded to, I mean, I do love a Pinot Noir. I'll always draw to that as my comfort wine. I think, you know, if we're having a fish dish over the barbecue, naturally going to steer towards probably a Pinot Grigio myself.
Okay.
If we are sitting around with a steak, maybe we should have a Merlot. Maybe that is best. But I think for myself, I would want to ensure that we're providing a beverage of choice for the guests that are turning up, not necessarily for my personal preference. And
You
so
can see both of you are well aligned as co-CEOs because your answers are quite similar in that. So I can see each other's influence rubbing onto the other. So
yes.
that's a wonderful and envious combination to have. Now, Sumari, apart from your teas, okay, which tea, and I don't mean other commercial names or anything like that. I'm more focusing on the country and the style of tea that you like personally. So I've tasted thousands of wines, and I'm often asked, what wine would you like? And my response, or what's your favorite wine? My response has always been, what am I eating? Who am I enjoying it with? And what's the moment? How about you when it comes to tea? Let's say that first cup in the morning.
I have a very light tolerance to caffeine later in the day.
Okay.
So I'm not a big black tea drinker. I just did have a cup of English breakfast, but that's more out of, making sure I drink all our teas and
Yes.
quality testing. But I would always go with an oolong. It is definitely my tea of choice. And then later in the day, I switched to white teas. Fujian or Bamadan white teas would be my switch to in the afternoon. And by 4 or 5 o'clock, I switched to herbals. That's when I would drink. We have a little minty chocolate rooibos honeybush blend,
Yes.
which is high in antioxidants. It's that perfect after meal tea. I love chamomile. Sweet Dreams is our, evening teas. So I definitely have a progression during the day where I would start with, a cup of black or a pot of oolong, like our citrus punch that I'm
Right.
having. And then I switch to white and then to herbals by around 4 or 5.
So let me stay on that point there, Sumari. So there are many people, out there in the world, our audience. They are very susceptible to drinking caffeine after a certain time because it keeps them up. Now, I'm not sure if you have yet, but probably you will have a decaffeinated tea. But what sort of tea, you've just come up with a great point. I'll have this tea, black tea in the morning to give me the boost. And then as the day wears on, I'm going to perhaps move on to lighter teas. So if there were 2 or 3 teas that you would recommend, say after 12, what would they be?
I would go with a white tea just because it has a lower caffeine level.
Okay.
uh, the caffeine levels between your black and your white can be substantial. So to after 12, I would definitely steer towards a lighter tea. I have a white cinnamon chai that I love because it hits that kind of spicy notes, the intricate flavor of something that you would like later in the day, but it has a very low caffeine content.
That's the sweet cinnamon.
Sweet cinnamon chai is
Right.
definitely one that I would say this is my go-to anytime in the afternoon. And then my evening teas is, you know, I love rooibos growing up in South Africa. So we have rooibos and honeybush. It's two varieties
Yes.
of the same plant. So yeah, that would be my evening tea. If you're not a chamomile fan, because sometimes people say, well, I don't drink tea in the evening. I don't like chamomile or peppermint. Like, you don't need to like those two to find a perfect evening tea. You know, tea is so great for your digestion. It helps with sleep. And I think more people, you know, our whole society, we're struggling with sleep. You know, we have all the sounds and, you know, different medicine and herbs. And I think if we look after eating earlier, drinking digestive tea, something, and it could be anything that would help with your digestion. It doesn't need to be a digestive tea as such.
That's really sound advice. Now, my penultimate question is going to be for you, Tim. Now, with an English background, I'm not going to ask you or put you on that spot. Is it milk first and then the tea, or tea and then the milk later? You can tell me that when we meet. But what I do want to ask you though is in that pensive moment when you're enjoying the cup of tea, what do you think about?
I think there is something magical about tea, that as you take that first sip, you take that breath and you automatically unwind. And I think having the moment to think about nothing is probably the best thing that you can have in a day that is wrapped with children and questions and so many other things that is constantly demanding your attention and a response immediately. To be able to take a breath and just think of nothing is a moment of bliss, I have to say. And I mean, both of us come from very different cultures, tea-wise as well. But one of the commonalities that we have with tea is being able to share it with somebody else. And I think, to me, that's probably one of the biggest blessings that we have, whether it's sitting down with our children at the end of the day and having an after eight, which is this mint chocolate tea, or a cherry Coke that we have that they enjoy with a little bit of honey, a bit of sweetness to it. Being able to enjoy that, or to sit with a close friend and to have a cup of tea and just be able to talk about life openly, is for me such a blessing when it comes down to the culture and the etiquette of drinking tea.
Well said. So the real magical moments come from tea. Now, and once again, I just want to share with you and ask you, when the consumer buys from you, what would you recommend? You know, because should they just buy the disc? You know, and I'm not sure. You know, what advice would you have for someone coming onto your website?
Okay, so my advice to get the process started, I mean, obviously, if you need any assistance with helping to choose your tea, contact us. We are always here to help you find your perfect cup of tea. But what I would recommend is, once you have got into that, I would invest in this. This is my go-to for...
Maybe if you come closer to the camera there so we can see what you've got there.
This is our tea disc humidor.
Oh,
so
yes.
Humidor. So as you can see, the dial on there is monitoring the humidity of the entire chamber. So the biggest frustrations that you have as tea drinkers is that you open up your tea, you enjoy the first few cups, and then the flavor starts to dissipate. And this happens because you've got air coming in, you've got light coming in. Both of them are affecting the quality and the flavor of that tea. And so this chamber, what it does is it stops light getting in, stops air getting in, but now it also moderates the humidity. So the humidity of this chamber is perfect, whether you are in Vancouver, Hawaii, or Arizona, or wherever you take this, the tea will be kept in that perfect chamber. And with it, we actually provide an activation flavoring. So it activates the humidor, but it also inserts additional flavor. So as it rests in there, you're getting more and more flavor adding to your tea. And actually, you'll find that the flavors will start to become a lot more round, a lot more mature. And you'll have, say, for instance, you decide that you want a little bit more chocolate, more of that flavor will start to infuse into the teas.
You know, we
This is my go-to.
On that note, we taste with our olfactory system so much. We, you know,
Yes.
that a lot of teas are so overly sprayed with artificial flavors, but it's not necessary. Just a continuous exposure to the essence would create a better flavor over time.
Well, I am so pleased to know that there is now a tea humidor. And I can imagine for the tea purists who are traveling all around the world, this would be very practical, very welcome. And I'm sure that the audience, if they would like to know a little bit more, Sumari, maybe if you can just tell us what your website is, that would be very helpful indeed.
It is iLolatea.com.
And can you spell that, please?
iLolatea.com. That's iLola Tea.
So iLola Tea. So on that note, thank you very much for being a wonderful guest, both of you, and sharing with us the inspirational journey that you've taken. And we wish you the very best, and perhaps we will be able to have a cup of tea.
We would love that. We will
in the
definitely
coming
send you
months.
some tea to enjoy.
Thank you very much indeed. And so if wherever you are in the world, if you are looking for that special cup of tea, I think that humidor, and with the love and compassion and making wine as a winemaker, I know that what comes out of your heart is extended into the product that you produce. And I think this will apply equally to Tim and Sumari. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Lee.
you for having us.
Thank you very much for watching our video. And if you liked our video, please like, share, comment, subscribe to our channel.